Hi, Doug.
Hello, Tim.
Chicken.
Just completing my quarantine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, good times.
Where'd you pick it up?
I have no, it seems like it's everywhere right now. So,
Mm.
but yeah, I've skirted a lot. So it seems like it was just my turn. It's even gone through my house and I didn't catch it. So,
Unbelievable.
yep,
I think everybody's going to get it sooner or later.
summer wave.
Well, I'm glad. Look like you're feeling better.
Yeah, I'm pretty much all the way back to normal.
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah. It was not nearly as debilitating as last time, but 5 days of isolating, staying away from the family, not helping around the house and whatnot is it's a lot to do.
Always popular.
Yeah,
Yeah. Been there, done that.
yeah. I think we all have now.
Well, hang in there, man.
Thanks. Yeah, looking forward to coming out of this tomorrow. I tested negative today already, so should be
Cool.
smooth sailing from here.
So you missed the closing of River City.
I did. Yeah, my band still played, and seems like it was a great time. But they still have a few more days and a few more bands playing. It's just the last weekend is completed. But
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, that was a big bummer. Gonna miss that place for sure.
Could be worse.
Yeah, yeah.
It's great for the remote meetings, though, huh?
Yeah, I mean it's these days, it's nice to have the option, especially, it's nice to be able to do it in person, but uh, the sort of hybrid thing we have going on is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I think just in general, it just allows more people to participate on both city council side, but also the public. So, everybody that can't make it for whatever reason can still participate, which is great.
Yep. Flexibility is good.
Yeah, it's nice to be there in person, but I conduct most of my business with work on Zoom anyway, so I'm used to it now.
Yeah, me too, man. It just seems more the normal thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, maybe next meeting we'll see each other.
Hope
Other
so.
than virtually.
Yeah, hope so. That's my plan.
Hi, Chris.
Good evening.
Smokey by you?
Beg your pardon?
Smokey by you?
You know, it's been overcast all day, so I can't really tell. I haven't seen any warnings or anything, so if it's smoky, it's not too bad. What about you?
It's been pretty terrible up here.
Oh, really?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to your city council meeting. Thanks for coming. We have two counselors on Zoom. We have a consultant on Zoom. We have us in the room and no smoke that I can smell in here. Isn't that nice? So the first thing, let's all please remember to turn off our cell phones to avoid interrupting the proceedings. Then I'm going to read a few words of context. As we meet tonight, let us remember that today we are stewards of land that has been home to indigenous peoples for thousands of years. We honor this land's ancestors as we go about our business today. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item is business from the audience. We have several folks signed up. I do always try to explain to folks that we're not going to talk about it, but we are building agendas for future meetings, so we're always interested in hearing. We have Jürgen and then Susan Hess first. Please come on up. Have you used the UFO yet before, Jürgen? Touch the rim so it turns green. You did it. Okay, now you're on.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm going to talk about the Indian Creek Restoration Project. I think you've all gotten this, so I just want to put a face with it and a time and place. My wife Susan and I have been working on this for 23 years. It all started when I was on the City Planning Commission. We have an ODOT adopt a permit, which is a legal thing that gives us certain authorities to be on the site and do what we've done. We have gotten support from so many people: city, council, ODOT, Pacific Power. And even now, somebody who does a lot of our maintenance is the corrections crew from the deputy sheriff who's out there. We have many students that have been involved. Total of 29 people on that sheet here that have been involved, and there's several of them. Megan and Mark were involved in getting their hands dirty, doing the planting. Hood River High School, the community college, helped with planting and in water. We have, every time we go by, there's somebody honking and says, "What can I do to help?" And which is sweet, which is what we want to do with the community. We've had businesses like Brian Type give us a whole bunch of things to help with the planting. What else? We've Kirby, remember Kirby Newman Ray? Everybody remember Kirby and Raylyn? They had stories, a number of stories about us, and they said, "You guys should have a plaque out here." And we felt like we don't want a plaque. It's not us. It's really the communities. Sometimes I think though, as when we get new people, maybe something like there might not be a bad idea. Just let people know, here's the history. Like who came before we came? There have been threats. There was a fire there and burned a whole bunch of plants. Oh my God, we were lucky we were close to the fire station. There were just storms here, went right down Indian Creek, tore out a bunch of plants. The successes though, when we got a bunch of the oak trees that were only this tall, and those oak trees now are taller than the ceiling. They're 15 to 25 feet tall. So it's like time. I watered and Susan watered. I carried 2 5-gallon buckets. I was a lot younger of water up from Indian Creek up that hill, put them on there. And it was really valuable. We were glad we could do something because ODOT didn't want to do anything. We said, "What can we do?" And I said, "Susan, are you okay if we spend our own money, buy the plants?" Yeah, and then a group called SOV, which is called Stop Oregon Vandalism and Litter. They gave us a grant and an award. Our concerns were, and it's in our report, that the urban renewal, and I'll talk to them too. They didn't know any of this history, and that's part of the problem with not marking things. So their proposal was take out all the trees, take out the chain link fence, and push out there and build a new retaining wall and put new plants and make it wider, which would deeply hurt what the community's done. It's not just Susan and I, but the whole community. And we feel there is an alternative. Use the west side of 12th Street. You got to get people over there to the west side. There's a lot of people who use the west side already, but to me, it's a very good alternative. You wouldn't run into these kinds of really, it's almost like it's a sacred place to us. So I want to just close with, anybody know Jake Fay? He works up Bryant Pike. If you ever need any kind of stuff for irrigation, he's the best. He's your guy. When I went up there, and I go up there frequently because I'm always doing stuff with their things. It's a quote from Jake. And he says, I just want to tell you what a wonderful thing you and your wife did at Indian Creek. I drive by there frequently and see how big those trees along the fence have gotten. They're beautiful. It's something I point out to my kids. And it's that passing on to the next generation. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jürgen. Susan?
She was asking me a Latin name. I had to translate that for just a moment. She asked me if some of those trees were Quercus Darienis, and they are. They're the native Oregon oak. So I'm going to just add on to what Jürgen says, that I do think that it's a value, and it's provided value for all these years in providing oxygen for us and providing the green space in there for, you know, all the sort of critters, all the insects and birds, and we've even found, you know, some garter snakes in there. So I do think it has just a huge value. I would add too, in addition to what Jürgen was saying, that, you know, the thanks that we've had from people who live in those apartments around there, that saying that it's so nice to have shade for those people who have to walk up and down there. And we are big supporters of the city, of course, and what you're trying to do with trying to make it livable for everyone. But we think this is an important thing, and we wanted to bring that to your attention. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Jody and Bill?
So it's still green. So that means it's still on? Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to make this work too. Okay. Mayor and council persons, I am Jody Bear, live in Hood River, live and work here in Hood River. I'm speaking on the city's waterfront stormwater project. My intention has always been to get this project designed and built in the best interests of the citizens of the city of Hood River, the rest of the human population, and planet Earth. It is clear there is confusion regarding the problem I am speaking to. There is no relationship between Tetra Tech and YSM. Tetra Tech owes me money and will break state laws if they sign engineering plans prepared under my charge. These are issues, but they are not the problem. The problem is the city has paid over $1.2 million for design of this project and does not have construction plans. $1.2 million was adequate for design and engineering support during construction. The system is partially replaced and was not intended or designed to remain in the state. The city is 100% responsible to deliver this project. Mistakes were made. The project was and continues to be mismanaged. Up until now, critical decisions were made for the benefit of individuals instead of the citizens of the city. The issues have not been addressed and will continue until they are addressed. Accountability is required. The city is 100% responsible to deliver this project for the $1.2 million already spent. Per the city charter, all powers of the city are vested in the council. Officers of the city serve at the pleasure of the mayor and the council. You are the leaders of this city. We elect you and need you to ensure the decisions made by the city officers, staff, and hired consultants are in the best interests of the citizens of the city. I thank you for your bold promises to us, working hard to improve the quality of life for all Hood River residents, promoting inclusive social and sound environmental policies, supporting our local businesses, supporting vulnerable community members who face injustices, addressing all social determinants of health, working to improve housing accessibility and availability of green space. I'm asking you, using your words, can we do this better and more efficiently? Are we thinking outside the box? Are we looking for bold solutions and opportunities? Are we creating the opportunity to listen to our citizens' ideas to create a better Hood River? Are we working together effectively with the community? Are we actively listening? Please remember Councillor Zan Miller's words of caution. If we stay with the safe choices, we are less for it. And lastly, please notify me when the council is going to discuss this so that I'm able to listen and provide expert and productive feedback. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Bill?
Apologies, Mr. Mayor, I didn't plan to speak, as I told you, but here I am. After hearing Jody and support of her work, and then this proposal, my daughter and I, 5 years ago, set up a very small nonprofit called Trees of the Gorge. And in that time and times before, actually, we planted 1.5 million trees from the Dalles River closure. And also Indian Creek. The site that we planted, the site's actually further up than this site, but it's all related. Boy Scouts, church members, and others participated in our events. And you started your meeting really appropriately with the land stewardship, and that's what this is all about. Jody mentioned her big projects about climate change, and so it's foolhardy to take down trees, especially Oregon white oak. Some of you may know I'm a wildlife biologist, specializes in oak. Oak is the best native tree you can have in the nation. It's the best tree for wildlife. More than 200 species use it, and it laughs at fire. It laughs at fire. There have been fires I've seen that looks like the trees are skeletons, and next year they come back. It's really hard to kill Oregon white oak via fire. So it's a fire resilient tree, and whatever happens, God forbid, in this town and area, the Oregon white oak will come back. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have any agenda additions or corrections, Abigail?
Mayor, we do not.
Next on the agenda is a public hearing for vehicle storage. I think I have a script. Stand by. Here we go. Hi, Jim. Just stand by. Ordinance 2078, Hood River car storage. This is the time scheduled for a public hearing on ordinance 2078. An ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 8.20, Section 8.20.010, Chapter 1036, Section 1036.020 of the Hood River Municipal Code to prohibit parking or storage of a motor vehicle, recreational vehicle, trailer, or personal property in the public right of way for more than 1 week. We will now hear the city staff report. Hi, Chief.
How are you?
Good.
Mayor, may I, before
Thank you.
you,
Want to hit that
I do,
point? You can do it.
the high point,
all
thank
yours.
you. I want to say thanks to Councillor Saunders and Councillor Holson, who noted 2 errors in the ordinance text that you have before you. So before we start, I just wanted to correct those for you.
Well done. Thank you.
And the first one is so this is on page 5 of your packet. The last whereas has the wrong date. It says a public hearing at its regular meeting on July 10th. And that is not when it's held, it's being held today. And then on the page 6, let's see, section 2, piece number 1 is it says, let's see, this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down. It says to a different location at least 1,000 feet away. And we had previously received direction that it was supposed to be 2 blocks. So it's corrected. It's correct further down in that paragraph, but we missed that
Great.
that one. So those are the 2 corrections.
Thank you for making.
Thank you. And thank you,
correction.
Chief, for letting me jump on that.
Absolutely, you did. And I was told Ms. Gray has the correct document.
Great, thank you.
Yes, and the correct, and posted that as well.
Well, tonight I'm bringing forward, it's been a long journey. I'm kind of excited that we're to this point. In 2022, we brought this forward in regards to parking on street, public right-of-ways, roadways. And tonight, we're just responding from our July 24th presentation in regards to that time we were looking at for distance and time. That time, the agreement was 7 days, no more than 7 days, and 2 city blocks from that location has to be moved. So tonight, we're just presenting the ordinance, hopefully for first reading.
Great, thanks, Chief.
Absolutely.
We will now have public testimony. City Recorder, has anyone registered to speak or provided written testimony? Thank you. The public hearing on ordinance 2078 is now closed. The City Council will now deliberate. God bless the script. Questions? Counselors for the chief, or discussion, or who wants to kick it off? Megan.
Just a question for either you, chief, or for legal counsel, but on page 6, there's multiple references to the prima facie evidence, and I don't know what that is.
Well, I'm gonna let the attorney say, that sounds like an attorney phrase.
It basically means on its face. So if you can present evidence that on its face suggests, that the violation has occurred, that it is enough to meet that standard. Now, the evidence can be rebutted. It doesn't have to be even particularly strong, but it just can't be, I saw a blue car over here last week and the car we're talking about is green, right? That wouldn't be prima facie evidence that we're even talking about the same car. So if it's evidence on its face that meets the standard, then it's prima facie evidence.
So what, sorry, and I'm not a lawyer, what would that actually, like, does that mean I have pictures from 3 different days, or?
Presumably, right, exactly, right.
Okay.
So it'd be evidence we collected that creates our case forward to saying we could tow this or give notice that it needs to be moved.
Got
And
it.
that's the information we would still bring forward to the judge if someone chose to dispute the tow.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
Is that city generated evidence or is that?
Well, the way we will work this is we will actually take the complaint. And then the complaint that we've been given, then we will generate our evidence based off that. That'll help us cut out the middle complaints that we can filter and actually develop evidence on our own without having people give us evidence and then we assume that's correct. So could we subpoena someone to come in? Absolutely, to testify on our behalf, or vice versa.
They already kind of asked the question that I wanted to. Just walk us through what the whole process would look like from beginning to end. So it sounds like you've already started a portion of it, and then you talk about how do you all gather evidence? Is it that once a report is made, then an officer goes out and takes a picture and continues that, or how walk us through the process?
So the way the process is we'll see it, or we'll be a complaint generated based on a neighbor or someone in the area, just saying, hey, there's a vehicle or trailer or boat in the area. It's definitely been there a long time. We go out ourselves, which would be a parking enforcement, Marty Morgan or Jennifer Kendall will go out there. They'll look at it and see if this situation meets that parameter. At that time, whether it's based on what the vehicle looks like, it could have flat tires or no tires at all. They might want to generate this a little bit quicker for something that could be unsafe for the general public. If it's not, then we'll start our 7-day notice and see what it looks like as far as internally. Has it moved? Has it not moved? And then they do an internal clock on their handheld system that lets them know it's a timer to go back and review it. And then once it meets that parameter of that 7 days, then it will be tagged and ticketed at that time, based on the evidence that they've received, that they've generated themselves. And that's when the process would start. So.
And then at that point, once they're tagged and ticketed, how are they notified? Is it through mail? Is it a phone call?
So there's several ways. If it's a vehicle registration plate that's local, our initial goal actually is just to contact them at the door if it's right there. Hopefully we can get kind of some kind of resolution right away. Even if it's just, even if it hasn't exceeded the 7 day, our normal process is saying, hey neighbor, this has occurred. There's sometimes lack of communication within neighbors. We're just kind of that middle person that kind of gives that balance and say, hey, we had a complaint concerning X. This is the concern, you know, and then we got to get their side of the story. So.
Thank you.
Jim.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess I'm gonna ask a hypothetical. You know, so I have a car parked out in front of my house, right? I'm able to walk most places. But sometime during a 7 day period, I get in my car and I drive to the grocery store, do some shopping, and come back and park my car in the same place. Does that constitute moving it?
Well, yeah, so what we would do is we would actually take a picture. Our system that we have that does monitoring for parking actually has a digital system where it can actually dictate where your stem of your valve stem is on your wheel. So we actually generate a digital photo of that, and it actually shows exactly where your valve stem is on your wheel. And that actually helps us to determine that that vehicle's been moved. We use that quite often, actually. We get a lot of neighbors complaining that it hasn't been moved, and then we can justify that actually it has via this valve stem.
So, but if I were to like get in the car and move it to the, like, go to the grocery store and come back, that would constitute moving in the context of the ordinance.
Yeah, if you're going weekly to the store, that is considered, yeah, you're definitely utilizing the vehicle each week. Again, that would be another one of those situations where we would contact the register owner as well. And hopefully we'd have communication. Hey, yeah, every Tuesday I get groceries. So great.
So I guess my follow-up question is how much time do you think that this is going to take?
You know, this isn't really going to take any more time than we currently do. Unfortunately, I think Councilor Sapina had mentioned it several meetings back. People really think we have a 72-hour notice right now of vehicles. So we're dealing with that quite often. I think it's even been more of a time consuming is because we have to articulate and explain to people we don't have a 72 hours because of this. But we still go out there and we still look at the vehicle because we have to make sure that our current code today, we don't have expired tags, it's vehicles operable. You know, not a busted out window, it doesn't have flat tires, there's not a bunch of oil leaking out of it. So we're still looking at those things. It's just unfortunately, we can't do there's no teeth in that where we can actually address it if there is a problem. So this actually allows us to address the problem if there actually is a problem and move forward with it, other than having that same neighbor that potentially could call 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes even more of that continuous because they don't see change because there's nothing currently what we can do in our code.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, you know, your neighbor could go away to work, come back, and no matter what you've done during the day, car is parked in the same place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I got a question for Abigail then. Abigail? In
Yes.
the ordinance, it says that at your discretion, you can write a permit for people to park longer than a week.
Mhm.
What criteria would you use to evaluate that?
Good question. I think I'd be working with the chief and our legal counsel to determine that criteria.
Currently, we do use situations like that. We've had situations where we've had people park actual, say, motorhomes. Say they're having some housing issues. We've had some sewer backups. We've had people, family members come in from out of town where they're actually parking some vehicles there because they have maybe an activity or their family members are staying there for longer than the X amount of days. And they've actually come in and spoken to the city and say, hey, this is the situation we have. So we've had a really good communication in regards to that. If it's kind of a proactive of knowing what is occurring at the time. So.
So it's really kind of like on a case by case basis then.
At this point, it definitely is case by case, kind of what's your story, and see if we can work with you on that.
So I guess in a situation where, let's say we have a resident who has a car and the car becomes broken down and the person can't afford to fix the car. And it's going to take them some time to get some money to fix the car. And it takes longer than a week. Say it takes a month. Is that a good reason?
We deal with that situation now, absolutely. There's several vehicles that even today we spoke about that we're trying to give this individual some time because they know he needs a new starter. We're definitely working with that situation. So, our ultimate goal is not the punitive damage of it. It's the ultimate goal is let's get that vehicle moved. So if we tow it, there's no money there to get it fixed. There's no money for the tow. It just prolongs that situation for a resident or a vehicle owner, I would say at this point. So we have a lot of people that don't have homes that have broken down vehicles in our community.
So I guess the flip side of that and is what would not be a good excuse?
Well, I think the not good excuse, I think it's the prolonging when we allow them to do things. That's one of the biggest things we've seen in my job is we've given them time to work out a situation and then we communicate back. Marty reaches back and says, hey, we've given you X amount. You said you'd have it done by that. And then they might give us another example why they couldn't do it. We might work with them. But if that continues to kick the can down the road, then there is some kind of action we have to take. And we do that at that point. So we only kick the can so many times. We've reached out to tow companies in the past to work with them as far as can we help them out in getting the vehicle moved somewhere else other than on the roadway and such. So we really, Marty does a great job of trying to work with the car owner at that time. So.
Yeah. What would be the kind of like the ultimate disposition? Would it be towing? Is that if the situation becomes unresolvable?
If the situation comes unresolved, yeah, absolutely. That's what this ordinance is about. It's about us enforcing, taking in our own power of towing this vehicle off the roadway.
And I don't see that in the ordinance as far as the penalties. Or is that kind of implied in some type of misdemeanor classification?
Well, the ordinance implies that it's, the sticker on it will say if it's not moved in so many days, it will be, towed at the owner's expense. So there's mechanisms in the process that explains that. So we reach out to the owner, we write a letter, and either if it's local, we'll go and do a door hanger, or we'll do a certified letter wishing for a return. The more difficult ones, we definitely do certified letter, just to make sure we have some compliance that they've received.
So we understand. What would a ticket cost when you're going to write a ticket?
I honestly, I don't write that ticket. It's very inexpensive. The ticket itself is very inexpensive. The tow was going to be a little bit more than that, but I can't give you, I know it's under $100, but I can't give you the exact fine. That fine schedule is what Marty and the parking enforcement handle. And I don't know at the top of my head.
And it's not part of the ordinance, right?
Well, that's not part of this ordinance. No, this is the enforcement mechanism.
So if the person gets their car towed, how do they get it done?
I didn't hear that. Did you guys?
Counselor, was that, how do they get the car back once it's been towed?
If it's been towed, yeah.
So when a vehicle's been towed, we would, if the registered owner or the owner of the vehicle is around, we would let them know who it is. They can come to our office and contact us in regards to, usually what happens when we do tow a vehicle, someone will say, hey, my vehicle is parked here. They'll actually call the non-emergency number of dispatch center or call our office and say, hey, I had my vehicle parked here. It's no longer there. And that way we just we generate a report when we tow a vehicle based on the liability. We tow it and we document through a report on where it went and why it went.
So I guess this is a question for Abigail. Abigail, in the context of, it seems like we're trying to address a problem here, right? And the problem is, I think it was originally that people were camping on the street.
Sure, I think camping on the street or people living in vehicles is definitely one aspect, and I think that is where you heard from some residents come. I think that's how that came to us as staff, was direction from council after you heard from some residents. But I do think there are other issues. I think I've shared that Public Works sometimes encounters cars that are parked all winter long on the street, and that creates difficulty for plowing, for street clearing, for sweeping. So there are other situations that come up as well. A neighborhood I can think of right now, there's an area where someone is working on a van, like they've recently acquired a van and they are overhauling it. And so that's been parked on a street that is not where the person lives. It's down the street, and those neighbors are frustrated that I think it runs a little bit, but it has not moved in over a month. So I think there's a variety of situations we're trying to address.
Yeah. So in the context of your discretion to waive this requirement, how do you envision this ordinance addressing that problem?
Addressing the
problem of
Yeah, well, I think it's a tool. I mean, and I'll yield to the chief, but all of our laws are sometimes a tool, right? It's an opportunity for police to have a conversation with the owner of the vehicle and just find out, like you said, what the story is. And sometimes in my own experience with folks who are living in their car, it's also an opportunity to connect people with resources that they may not have reached out to receive. And it sometimes can be an opportunity to motivate someone to accept or seek out services they might not have otherwise been willing to do. Knowing that that there is the potential for a fine can sometimes help people to accept help. And I think we have a good relationship. Not only our police officers are aware of resources, but we also have the MCAC outreach worker who will also make contact. So once we have an ordinance in place, if council chooses to do this, then that gives us an opportunity to just start those conversations.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you, Counselor.
For answering my questions. Thank you, Chief.
Megan.
It was, well, no, it was something in the middle of Tim's, but I've now completely forgotten.
Well, it'll come back. Gladys.
Thank you. Chief, can you help us understand what would happen with an owner with multiple vehicles? So let's say they own them, they all have insurance, they all have tags, but you have a couple that are parked on the public street and they reside within the residence that they're closely parked to. How would this policy impact an owner with multiple vehicles?
Well, just like it's the letter of the law. We're not going to say one for one person and something else for another person. We're going to work with everybody. But the ordinance says if we get a complaint, we're going to do our own investigation. But if a vehicle hasn't moved within 7 days and we've got a valid complaint from someone, we will address that. It doesn't mean it's getting towed. Like I said earlier, that means we have conversation with the owner and say, hey, we've got a concern here by neighbors. Again, we're using that middle person because neighbors don't talk to neighbors sometimes. And we just say, hey, we've got a concern about this car not being moved. And that happens even today.
Yeah.
So.
Can you give us a little bit more data around how many calls a month or how many calls a week do you think that you all respond to these sorts of matters around cars in general?
I don't get that call. It goes directly to code enforcement. So I don't know exactly the top of my head. I know we get several a week. There was a gentleman here last month regards to some of the height stuff. It's really neighborhood sensitive, I guess you would say. We get some people that spend a little more time as this being the prerogative to look at in their neighborhood. And then there's some neighborhoods that, there's vehicles that have never been called on and they've got moss on them. So, it's
Right.
it's hard to tell.
And, I can understand some of the safety concerns that have been brought up by constituents that have come to the meetings. I hear that. Part of similar to what Counselor Cunahan was mentioning, I'd really like to see more verbiage around if an individual who is living or residing within the vehicle, that there's just additional support that's given. Fully aware that your officers have the understanding of where those resources are. But sometimes when you have somebody else doing that care coordination for you, it's a lot easier on that individual. So I'd love to see overall just more verbiage around the sorts of supports that we can offer to an individual when they're residing within the vehicle. I think Counselor Cunahan asked around ticketing, the price. Do you know the price for just towing in general?
I don't.
Okay.
That all varies. That's not done by us. That's by
Uh-huh.
individual, we call it a tow rate
Yeah,
rotation.
yeah.
Individual tow companies within our community.
No further questions for me. Thank you.
Chris, if you have relevant, we'd
Yeah,
love
I
to
was
hear.
gonna just answer the ticket. It's $38. So it's $38 actually. There's a ticket for parked over 72 hours. There's also a ticket for an abandoned car, and they're both $38.
Yeah, and we haven't changed that whatsoever. That's a fee schedule, so. So instead of 72 hours, it'll now say up whatever, 168 hours.
Anything else, Gladys? Others? Megan.
I did remember. So, I guess with the, the city manager can provide a permit, do you envision that, and I'm gonna make this like we're the Oregon legislature of like, oh, we've made the statute and then there's an administrative rules process and like there will be some sort of written guidance for you and future managers, or is it really gonna just be case by case and super variable, or what does that look like?
I think I'll work with the chief on kind of what their experience has been in the past, what kind of things have they seen, so we can try to rate something that's general enough to cover many of those. But some of the things I can think of off the top of my head are just, has this person done this repeatedly? Is this, where is the location? Like, if this is an area that is not safe or blocks traffic, like, we're not going to be able to allow that. But I think we'll try to write something that's pretty general and allows for, consistency, but also flexibility. We want to make it work for our residents. So, but I do think your analogy of like having a law and then having administrative rules, I think is appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. I think I said this, however many meetings ago, of the just like full discretion does make me uncomfortable. So
Mhm.
having some rules or guidance would be useful.
Yeah, and perhaps after the first year, we could come back to you with a report. This is how many exceptions were requested and granted, or how long they lasted. We can certainly collect some data if that would be helpful.
I think that'd be, from my end, yeah, that would really help
Great.
build confidence in this and figure out how it's going. Yeah, thank you.
Is that something that we can add in there now, where we'll do some sort of evaluation after a year to understand what's working well and what needs to be improved?
Sure, I think we'll be able to, I'll work with the chief and we can find and figure out what data we already collect. I don't want to put too much workload on the police to collect another data point, but we can maybe look at what we've already got, and then certainly the request for exceptions or permits, we can collect that data.
So I feel like I heard from Tim and Gladys both either some concerns or suggestions for changing but before we can make motions, and you could make a motion to amend and see if it finds favor. So just be thinking about if you're imagining voting for or against, or voting to suggest an amendment, we could see if that passes tonight. Doug.
I just wanted to call attention to the fact that when I made the motion last time when we voted on this, I did include some language around having a report sooner than later. It might have been 90 days from what I said. I have to go back to the record to read it, but it was in the motion.
I do think it was 90, yeah.
Thank you, Doug. And would you imagine that's the type of language that would be in the motion? in the ordinance, or would that be instruction to staff to review an ordinance?
I think it's probably more pertinent for instruction to staff to come back. You know, as Abigail just said, you know, we don't want to make a bunch of work for enforcement to collect these data points. But I think, you know, I think Councilor Zandler put it best when we were deliberating on this before. You know, sometimes we have to try these types of things, and if you know, especially when we're in the case of this is a tool being utilized, there is not a lot of specific language that we can put in there. If it's working adversely and the city is being inundated with, you know, neighbor against neighbor types of requests because this has come forth, I think we'd want to know about that, and we'd want to know about that sooner than later. I don't believe that to be the intention of this ordinance at all. That's not what I'm saying, but would be nice to know that after this is put into motion, that it's that the chief and enforcement are being able to use this tool as explained to us.
Thanks, Doug. Kim.
I guess this is a question about the administrative rules. Are the administrative rules something that would come back to us and that we would approve and review?
Generally, I would say, I assume that question was to me. Generally, I would say that's pretty operational, but happy to report them back to you. I wouldn't see holding a whole work session on it, but if you wanted, as part of tonight's discussion, give direction on things you want to see in administrative rules or you know, factors that you think should be considered, I'm happy to take that input tonight as well.
Honestly, what I'm hearing mostly is that, you know, and I guess part of what causes me consternation is at the manager's discretion. Right. And, you know, there's the manager right now. There's the police chief right now. But then there's the future to think about. Right. So I guess my preference would be that we would define those.
So I think I would, one comment is that I think this was intentionally written to be the city manager because the city manager reports directly to council. You know, so it's not as far removed as the police chief, but it is someone who directly reports to you. So there's a little closer connection there.
Great.
Just follow up on Councilor Doug's question. Yes, last time we had a motion, it did have a 90-day review after passing period. At that point, we can evaluate how it's going. If we needed to alter or change anything, we certainly could. So that was in your motion last time. Regarding any exception or permit or whatever, that is, I believe, something we could certainly just evaluate from an administrative evaluation thing and not necessarily needs to be in the ordinance itself.
Thank you, Grant. Oh, thank you,
Chris has his hand up.
Chris.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. From a legal perspective, I prefer clean decisions. So I think I would recommend approving the ordinance or not in one motion, and then any direction to staff would be a separate motion if you want to do it in a full motion. It seems to me that the two, with respect to direction to staff, the two could be combined. If you want staff to report back in either 3 months or 6 months on implementation with some data on implementation, and also any standards the city manager may have developed for determining when to issue the discretionary permits.
Thank you, Chris. Mark.
I just have my couple points, questions at this point. So I think this is a tool that we've talked about a bunch. It fills a hole that we keep finding. And so I'm glad that we're doing it. I think that you know, Doug and Grant both pointed out that, you know, we're going to learn stuff. And so I think every new ordinance we do, you know, we're going to want to re-look back at after 6 months and sort of say, are we avoiding unintended consequences? And I know, you know, staff is really good about pointing stuff out, but a second motion to that would be great. To me, it's more about storage than camping. And as we do infill and stuff, it's just something we're gonna have to manage more. And so this puts a very reasonable request on citizens to talk to your neighbor and give them your keys if you're leaving and move my car at the end of the week. Verbiage with respect to services, I think that's great. I think that's more of a communications and implementation thing than a ordinance language thing. I mean, and again, we have all these ordinances and I think that they want to be clean, and then how we implement them with respect to services and stuff is a great idea. And then as far as the permit thing, I think that we'll look at the data in 3-6 months and we'll know if it's a thing. My guess is it's not. But the data will tell the story. So I'm in support of this and hope to see it go through. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. At any point, I would entertain a motion either for an amendment or kind of up to us to decide.
I move to hear ordinance number 2078 with the typographical edits on tonight's agenda for the first time by title only.
Moved by Paulson,
I'll second.
second by Stepina. Discussion. Megan.
Yeah, I guess I just want maybe just on the record of, I'm still a little uncomfortable with the discretion, but I'm glad to hear that there'll be, whatever our version of administrative rules are. And I look forward to, if we're reviewing that and how the program's working in a relatively short time frame, I'm feel comfortable enough to move forward with this. So thank you.
Further discussion? Tim, thank you.
Yeah, I think my preference would be to strike the at the manager's or designee's discretion, and then put based on administrative rules that will be developed.
Okay, so I'm not the parliamentarian, but we have a motion on the floor and the option is for us to vote on that motion. I'm hearing Tim suggest really an alteration to the ordinance, which is if this motion fails, then we could consider that question. I think there's a chance that we're going to vote and this motion is going to pass, and then Tim's consideration will not be included. Maybe I have that wrong, but that's kind of what it seems like to me.
That's correct in this particular motion, yes.
Thank you, Grant. Further discussion? Megan.
Sorry, Chris, from a legal end, would that be clear for any future, like we're in front of, I guess, the municipal
Right,
court?
correct. The motion did not include an amendment to the language of the ordinance.
Oh, no, I get the parliamentary rules I get, but would Tim's potential amendment to a future motion, like, would that be clear to have in the ordinance in the future than what's in there right now?
No, that would take a separate ordinance to again amend what you adopt tonight. If I understand Councilor Cunahan's comment correctly, he was suggesting amending this ordinance. But the prior motion exists, the standing motion is to approve it as is. A suggestion to later amend the ordinance would have to come before the council in a separate ordinance.
Right, I'm saying, if let's assume this motion dies, Tim's passed, would the language he's stating, would that be clearer than the current language if we were going to defend this ordinance in front of a judge?
So if the current motion to approve fails, and there is a subsequent motion to amend the ordinance to include and delete certain language, and that was approved, then the ordinance could be approved as amended. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
I think that she's asking, would that then be a stronger ordinance that would be more defensible?
is it having language that refers to, the administrative rules versus the city manager's discretion? Would that be more defensible if there were a future?
No, it's defensible. It's equally defensible either way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Right up. So, a lot going on. Further discussion? I'm going to call the question and let's raise our hands so that we can count. All in favor?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4 on the screen. I count 4 ayes. Opposed? Gladys? Tim, your hand is not quite on screen. Is your hand supposed to be on screen?
I'm blurred, but I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna Make it easy.
No, okay, Tim's saying no. So I count 2 nays, 4 ayes, chair votes aye, motion passes 5-2. With Zoom and everything, let the record show that that's what happened. Is it clear? Was it recorded what happened? Yeah, okay. Great. So that closes
Mr.
that.
Mayor?
Yes,
I move we direct staff to get back to us in a period of 90 days to provide us feedback and options on potentially framing out the discretionary nature of permit issuance.
moved by Paulson.
You have to-
Do we have a second? So if you'd like to amend it, in my opinion, strategically, let it die for lack of a second, and then we can refine. Moved by Paulson. Motion dies for lack of a second.
I'm sorry, this is so minor, but I would move that, and I already forgot your language, but I would move that we request staff come back to us in about 90 days to review, whatever administrative guidance or rules around the city manager's permit system, and also just generally review how the program's working or what we're hearing from the community or other feedback on how this is going.
Moved by Saunders,
Second.
second by Paulson. Discussion. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, I have to oppose it if I already opposed it once.
That's different.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Chief,
My concern about the 90 days is we're gonna have a small window, less than 90 days, once you approve it the second reading, because it still has to take effect, was it 30 days after? So we need to push that out to give it time to mature.
I
within
think
the
we
system.
can grant you grace operationally
Okay.
about that.
And just don't, I don't want to bring back false hope.
Nope,
Or
thank you.
false information.
No, appreciate it.
Okay,
90 days
okay.
from hitting the road.
If it's
Yeah.
not Christmas Eve, that's it.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about the weather, if we
Oh,
get
of
into the
course.
snow.
Can I
mode.
just say, I meant 90 days from adoption,
Yeah.
if that helps.
I think we can work that.
The about in that about 90 days is doing a lot of lifting. So,
As it always does.
Okay, can we move on? Good work, everybody. Thank you. We have the consent agenda.
I would move we approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Saunders,
Second.
second by Paulson. Discussion? All in favor?
Yeah.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. City recorder,
Your Honor, I'd like to entertain a motion for the second and final reading of ordinance 2077 by title only.
So moved.
moved by Saunders,
Second.
second by Paulson.
Counselor Paulson,
Aye.
Counselor Rivera,
I,
Counselor Stupina,
Aye.
Counselor Saunders,
Yes.
Counselor Coonihan,
Aye.
Counselor Zan Miller.
Yes.
Your Honor,
Aye.
ordinance 2077, an ordinance making certain determinations and findings relating to and approving the West Side Urban Renewal Plan and directing that notice of approval be published.
Ordinance 2077 has had its second and final reading by title only and will become law in 30 days.
Your Honor, I'd like to entertain a motion for the first reading of ordinance 2078 by title only.
So moved.
Moved by Paulson,
Second.
second by Zan Miller.
Counselor Zan Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Coonihan,
No.
what did he say? Okay. Counselor Saunders,
Yes.
Counselor Stupina,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
no.
Counselor Paulson.
Yes.
Okay, and ordinance 2078, an ordinance amending title 8, health and safety. What's that?
I was.
Oh, Your Honor, sorry.
Aye.
Sorry. Ordinance 2078, an ordinance amending Title 8, Health and Safety, Chapter 8.20, abandoned motor vehicles, Section 8.20.010, and lawful storage of vehicles within the public right of way or on public property, amending Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 10.36, stopping, standing, parking, Section 10.36.020, prohibited parking and standing of the Hood River Municipal Code to prohibit parking or storage on a motor vehicle, recreational vehicle, trailer, or personal property in the right of way, public right of way for more than 1 week.
Chief, you gotta shorten the title.
Yeah, thanks, Neil.
Ordinance 2078 has had its second reading by title, no, first reading by title, and we'll have its second reading in 2 weeks. City manager comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess first, since police chief is here, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about our upcoming police cars. Do you have 1 second to talk about? We've waited a long time for them.
Another exciting moment, right?
Yes.
Since 2020.
I didn't give him any advance
Yeah,
warning. Sorry
so
about
yeah,
that.
It's a great word is our vehicles are in, they're at our building location in Salem and we're hoping to get them mid next week. So supposed to start Wednesday. And it's exciting. We get 2 vehicles, one we've been waiting for over 2 years. I told Chris the other day, we're gonna spend that capital money that's been sitting there for 2 years.
Thanks for the
fire engine red ones. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we went with red, yeah.
Thanks for managing that kind of supply chain issue, Chief. I know it's not easy.
It's scary actually at time for the public sector, so.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been 2 years. Were these the hybrids or what were they?
Well, what we end up getting are not hybrids, they're small V6s, but they have no idea when hybrids are even going to be available. They had no future outlook on those. And the only reason we got these 2 was an existing municipality had ordered them, got frustrated, and went another route. And they canceled the order and they called and said, hey, we have a couple here. If you don't want them, we've already got them sold to someone else. And so they were very fortunate to be that squeaky wheel. They knew we were wanting vehicles. So.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. I just have 2 very quick updates for you. One is if you have been on 17th and 18th and near the middle school, you know that we have installed the hardware for the Safe Routes to School demonstration project. So take care driving in that area. The traffic controls have changed. There's now a stop sign. You know, it's a 3-way stop there by the school. So we have a survey up and I think we'll be up for quite a while, both for parents and for teachers, people who work at the school, but also for neighbors and anyone who drives that area. So the project starts now. It goes till November 1st. We'll remove all of the equipment before we do a lot of snow removal, but then we'll bring that data back to you as we learn more. So that starts.
And your soundbite made the 5 p.m. news clip with Mark Bailey. Congratulations.
What was my soundbite?
Newsworthy talking.
Ooh, got to go back and see. I try to keep it snappy, I guess. So Mayor and I were on the Mark Bailey show this morning, so which we are on the 4th Monday every month. It's always a pleasure. And then my last thing is just you have seen the announcement that we're starting a civics or a Hood River 101. There are, we think, 15 to 20 slots, and so encourage your friends and family, anyone who might be interested about how you spend your time or why the city does what it does. It's a great chance to get that behind the scenes peek.
Do counselors have a role in that, or
we approach you
buy
about
us some
that?
ice cream to keep us away?
I think that Jackie and I will be talking about. I think there are 6 or 7 sessions, and there are 7 of you, so there might be some great opportunities. So
I've gotten a lot of nice feedback about it, giving me credit that I don't deserve, but I'm like, great.
Fantastic.
I feel like we talked about this, but I can't remember. How is that gonna be advertised? I did see it on the city's Instagram. Is that the only way that we'll market that this class is taking place?
Yeah, I think we're trying to get out the word in lots of different venues. So it was on the front page of our newsletter. That's in English and Spanish. It is, we sent it out to a press release. And then we've made some direct contacts to folks who we thought might be particularly interested. So for example, the school district, maybe teachers who maybe teach government or want to know more about how the city works, sent it out also to a number of social service providers. Perhaps they have, a particular, their employees might have interest, or they might serve clients who have an interest. So we tried to send it out in kind of our traditional ways, but also just some personal, relationship contacts. So one of the things we'll be asking people who apply for it is, where did you hear about it? And that will help us. And I should note that the final week, I don't remember what the date is, will actually be a graduation, and they'll be presenting to all of you. So you'll see them on their last day.
What's the attendance limited to?
I
What,
think we're saying 15 to 20 people in our, well, we're hoping just to, if we get that many, then we'll accept them all. If not, and we have to prioritize, we'll choose those who live inside the urban growth boundary first.
There are some locally famous government civics instructors at the high school if you want any
Oh, fantastic.
recommendations. I would recommend.
That's great.
Anything else, Abby?
No, that's it for me. Thank
I
you.
have another question around that. Is this going to be offered in Spanish? What are we gonna do if we have Spanish community
Mhm.
members that wanted to get?
Yeah, so we've asked in the application process if folks have translation or accommodation needs. And then Jackie and I will work on what that looks like. It could be simultaneous translation. We have someone in the back who's translating and someone listens. And we hope to maybe someday have at least maybe a shortened session like this that is exclusively in Spanish and maybe addresses things that are of particular interest to our Spanish speaking community. So this is our very first time doing this. So we're gonna, all of our department heads are working on their presentations, and we're going to try to make it as interactive and fun as possible. But we'll definitely be interested in, we'll learn a lot from this first time, and I'm sure going forward it'll evolve over the years. Oh, I see Councilor Stupina.
Doug.
Just wanted to take a second to acknowledge staff's hard work on this. If I was able to take this, I would certainly take it as a citizen. And I implore everybody that is listening right now that hasn't taken a look at it to take a look at it. I'm very excited. And thanks to staff for spending time on it.
Thank you, Councilor.
Sounds like you have your first volunteer, Abigail.
Hey, I'll put my political science hat back on, 101.
Anything else, Abigail? Committee reports. Let's start with Doug.
I have nothing to report.
Tim.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Megan.
Nothing.
Mark.
I went to the Visit Hood River meeting, since the last meeting. They have a whole bunch of events coming up. There's Harvest Fest and Hops Fest, and they're generally upbeat. The tone was tied into how do we teach visitors to be kinder, gentler on the community, and certainly focused on off-season stuff. And then, what can the tangential stuff that we've been asking them to do. So, but I don't know. So far, I've been to only 2 meetings, but the vibe is positive.
Thank you, Mark. Clarence.
Nothing from me.
Grant.
None.
I chaired the Housing Authority meeting this morning, and good news about that state funding, and the projects are moving along. There's a lot of pieces in place with vouchers and down payment assistance and community land trust, and a lot of moving pieces, but certainly our Rand Road project is a front and center, and very exciting that's moving forward. There's so many puzzle pieces, but some of the big ones have fallen into place. 2 things for mayor comments. We have a nomination, I guess, from the port. Christie is becoming the chair of the commission. So their request or recommendation or nominee is Ben Shepherd to be on the Urban Renewal Agency. So let's see, do we appoint that, or does the agency appoint that?
Council appoints.
Council appoints. So can we do that? Would that be in order to attempt to do that right now? So I would entertain a motion to appoint Ben Shepherd to the Urban Renewal Agency.
So moved.
Moved by Coonahan. Second by Zan Miller. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. And then finally, we got sort of a formal request from the county. I think it was in the form of a letter now. I don't know if you guys caught it, but when they approved the urban renewal district, they sort of formally requested that we start talking about a strategic annexation plan. And we've heard from Arthur as an individual about that, but now the commission has communicated about that. So we'll be moving ahead on figuring out how we want that discussion to look. And certainly we're not the boss of them and they're not the boss of us. But I think in this instance, coordinated talking about it and planning, because it is complicated. And there's a number of motivations and a number of scenarios. But I think it's a good idea to work together on that. So we'll be moving ahead. Mark?
I don't want it to, I would hope that it isn't just opinions of what counselors and commissioners think is the right answer. So, I mean, we have super short staff, right? I mean, our lawyers and our planning departments, and it should really start with here's the pros and cons of at the technical level. And then we can suss out where that is policy wise. But, and I am just preaching to the choir here. I understand.
How do folks feel about what Mark just said? Does that make sense?
I think it does. I actually maybe want to go a step further back than that of, getting us all on the same page of what this means and like, so that we have a base level of information to even know what questions we want to be asking staff or a future consultant or something of, this is going to be a big project. And I don't think it's certainly not in our current work plan, but I think it's something we need to be looking at. But right now it's like, I could come up with some questions. And then I think 6 months from now, as we learn more, I'd come up with 17 more. And I'd rather we come up with all the questions at once, if that makes sense.
I would think that staff could kind of highlight the issues, like saying, here's a policy question regards this, regards city finances, regards county finances, regards special district finances, regards timing, regards potential lawsuit liability. I mean, there's just to help us surface what the issues are, I think would be very helpful. And that's certainly staff's job. Great, thank you. Anything else on that letter about annexation? Council comments. We'll start with Grant.
Oh, nothing major. I got for the Bridge Authority, I got to where I get to. I will be going to the farmers market up in Odell on September 7th. They're going to have a outreach event thing. So maybe if you want to come up too, for the civics stuff and to get the word out and whatnot, that might be useful. I don't have anything else.
Gladys?
Nothing for me.
Y'all heard that Will has agreed to be the urban renewal agency administrator. When does he start?
September 25th.
On September 25th.
And our new HR manager starts on Wednesday this week. So.
Congrats.
Thank.
Man, just rolling in. There was an email by Margot Blosser about evacuation stuff, and it feels to me like a decent topic to go into. To me, it was just like, well, we should certainly at least be communicating, in light of Lahaina stuff, we should be communicating the sign up for the county alerts and it's whenever there's an opportunity that people are thinking about it, remind them that there are tools that aren't probably, I don't know what the adoption rate is for that tool, but it's pretty nice. Everyone should have it. And so, and then the ODOT related emails with respect to the ADA ramps. It feels like communicating that the council's on, I can never tell whether it's common knowledge that council is holding, we're not signing the MOU until we see drawings and have this discussion a little bit more, and just communicating that out. And that's why I'm just saying it out loud right now is we too want to see that done right. And I think that we're on the job there. For the LID status thing that, a couple of folks talked about, I don't have a sense of what the original, what the drawing that Wade presented a year ago, and then what does the drawing look like of what we're implementing right now? It sure seems like it would be handy to have a presentation. Is that, you had
Yeah.
mentioned that at least in our meeting.
Thank you, Counselor. Tetra Tech is tentatively scheduled to come to the September 11th, so your next council meeting, and present the current status of the project. And I've asked them if they'll also be willing to do a little bit of background and make sure we all understand like what the original goals were of the project and how the project as designed will meet those goals. I believe in I sent you all a link to a Dropbox account that Ms. Bear had set up. In there are, I think there's about 20 attachments. Each one has like 3 to 5 documents. But in there were the original designs. I'd also can certainly find you that council meeting where that was presented if you wanted to see what the originals look like.
Well, I was thinking Public Works would say, here's what we presented a
Okay,
year ago. This
yeah.
is their plan, and this is the
Yes,
current.
I think Tetra Tech will talk about the evolution of the plan, right? Like as
Yeah,
any,
right,
in any project, there's always the value engineering and the evolution as you learn more information. So I'll make
Just
sure that
as we
they-
get a bunch of people saying, what are you guys doing?
Right.
That's the.
right. And some of us were not here, when the plan started. So I really want to make sure that we all have kind of a shared understanding of what was the original goal? Why are we doing this? And how has it evolved? So I look forward to Tetra Tech coming on September 11th.
Thank you. very
Thank you.
much. That's everything I have.
Thank you.
Yes, so I went to the county meeting with Abigail last week to talk about West Side Urban Renewal, and I with the annexation letter, if you could just let them know we got it and are like
Yes,
discussing how to address it.
I've already done that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Just to keep that line of communication open. But anyway, but yeah, so went and presented and, unanimous approval from the county, which was really gratifying. And I don't think there was anything else in the meeting that was super relevant to the city, but always fun to be there. And then I did Whiting had a town hall that was simultaneous Spanish translation 2 weeks ago. I've lost track of time again. Gladys and I both were there, which was interesting. And of course, housing came up, as unsurprising as that is. So, yeah.
Doug?
Yeah, just want to thank Abigail and staff for getting that Tetra Tech meeting on the books. I think everybody's going to really appreciate being able to learn a lot more about that. In the same vein, I understand you've been working on engaging the taxi community on the rideshare discussion we've been having. Look very much to hearing the feedback and what you discuss with them in those discussions. I want to just publicly acknowledge that this is the last week that River City Saloon's open, and it's been a huge center for local music over decades. And a lot of people are going to be really sad to see it go. Just wanted to say thank you to Joe Kirkwood, Claire Kirkwood, Joel, that whole team over there for providing a stage at very low cost to people that want to be able to perform that are in this community. We're gonna miss them. And September 1st is the next First Friday, and that's centered on the arts. And it's going to be tough walking around the community knowing we have one less place for people to perform. So want to encourage everybody to keep finding opportunities for people to showcase their art. It's really something that I think that makes Hood River amazing. Thanks again, River City, for all the years of work.
Thanks, Doug. Tim?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, talking about fire evacuation, looking outside, seeing the smoke, breathing the smoke. This really kind of makes it seem to me that we really need to think about doubling down on our efforts to address climate change and everything that we do. It's really tough. I hope everybody's weathering the smoke okay. And I would be remiss to not mention that as terrible as the wildfire smoke is, and it's really terrible, that the smoke coming out of people's fireplaces and wood stoves are made up of the same thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I believe that brings us to our executive session. Have I missed anything?
I think we're covered.
I have. Script. The city council will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6601E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transaction. No one of the news media is here. We will now cease the broadcast. No decision may be made nor final action taken in executive session. The executive session is anticipated to last 25 minutes. At the end of the session, council meeting will be adjourned and no action will be taken.
Great.
Let me know when we're ready.
Yeah, we've got like Adam, Leonard, Neil, do those people need to be here?
No. Thank you all, department heads. You're all released for the evening, except for Chris and Dustin. They get detention. They get to stay. They're here in the room.
All right, just to clarify, which Chris?
No, both Chris's. All
Okay.
Chris's are welcome in executive session, so.